Hey y'all, it's Bo and welcome back to my channel. I'm a registered dietitian and homemaker. On this channel you'll see quite a few grocery hauls, cooking videos, and other nutrition related content along with the occasional thrift haul because I do like thrifting. Today in this video I am taking you along throughout the course of an entire week and basically just filming exactly what I prepared and cooked for us for 7 days in a row. This was a unique video because I had not been to the grocery store in 2 weeks. So I really show you how I utilize what is in my pantry to put together balanced meals. You'll also get to see our Thanksgiving meal that I prepared for my family. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're new here, please subscribe. Thank you so much for supporting my channel. Let's dive into a week's worth of meals with a registered dietitian and homemaker. On day one, I made a large batch of venison chili. I just wanted to make something simple that would allow me some free hands to work on some other things I had going on in the kitchen, which you will see in a few minutes. But I started by chopping an onion, a bell pepper, and just peeling some garlic cloves. I'm gonna heat the bell pepper and onion in some butter before I start adding in the spices and meat. Up next, I'm adding in chili powder, chipotle chili powder, cumin, and a little bit of paprika to season my chili. The chipotle chili powder definitely gave it a little bit of a kick, so I would avoid that if you don't want it to have a kick. Up next, I'm adding in a small can of diced green chilies. Give it a good stir and just let that cook for a few minutes. This is also the time that I decided to add in about 4 or 5 garlic cloves. I like to add it in when there's a little bit more juice in the pan because I have a tendency to burn garlic. So because I was making such a large batch, I added in an entire 24-ounce container of strained tomatoes. Now I have made chili with a variety of different tomato products. Sometimes I've used tomato paste, sometimes I've used just petite diced tomatoes. There's really a lot of ways that you can do it. It really just depends on what you like and that sort of thing. So this is just what I have in my pantry, and so I am going with it for this recipe. Chili is one of those really easy meals because once you get everything together in the pot, you just put the lid on and simmer it slowly, and you can do other things in the kitchen. So that is actually what I'm going to be doing. I like to do a simple meal when I have other things that I need to get done. So I really needed to make a batch of sourdough rolls. My toddler really loves sourdough rolls, so I try to keep them on hand most of the time. So I'm just starting by grinding up my flour, and then I'm going to mix it all together to form the rolls, and then I will actually be letting them ferment 24 hours, so they won't be ready until tomorrow night. This would have been the perfect pairing with the chili, but I didn't have time to make them the day before, so no worries, you just do what you can. I actually had a sourdough starter in high school. I really wish I would have maintained it because by now it would be like 12, 13 years old, which would be so cool. But when I went to college, I just, for obvious reasons, did not have time or focus to worry about a sourdough starter. So I'm starting from scratch with my starter, and it's been a learning curve because I don't really remember that much about it. So I'm still on a journey with sourdough. So here's the chili. It's looking awesome. I decided to add a bag of roasted corn because I needed a carbohydrate to go with the meal, and I didn't have any bread. I didn't have really anything that made a lot of sense to go with chili. So I decided to open my freezer and just see what I would stumble upon, and I had this bag of roasted corn. I also decided to add a can of diced tomatoes just for some chunkiness to the chili, and it was really a good addition. So we're all ready to serve it up. I love venison chili. Venison has a slightly distinct flavor, but chili is always a go-to recipe for me for venison because there's so many flavors you can easily kind of cover up that gamey flavor that venison can have. Of course, I need to serve this with cheese. I love cheese on my chili, so this is just the raw cheddar from Azure. And then we had a few crackers on the side. Day 2, I made salmon, veggies, and sourdough rolls. This is a perfect example of using what's available in your kitchen, learning how to utilize the foods in your pantry to put together a balanced meal with whatever you have. That is what this meal is. It's not a typical combination of foods, but I was able to provide my family a protein, a vegetable, and a carbohydrate. At this point, I had not been to the grocery store in 2 weeks, so it's really just me utilizing what was available. I peeled some carrots and parsnips. These are really good cold hardy vegetables. You've probably heard me say it before, but they last a long time in the fridge. I almost always have these in my fridge because I can fall back on them when I don't have something else fresh. These things keep in there a long time. I already had the oven on to bake my sourdough rolls, so this is going to go in the oven as well. I'm using ghee, which is clarified butter. So it is a higher heat oil, so it does well with roasting and it's very delicious. I will also add some salt and pepper on this after it comes out of the oven. Okay, now I'm gonna get the salmon started. Salmon does not take very long to cook, so at this point my vegetables were almost cooked, my rolls were also almost cooked. So I am not an expert at cooking fish. I feel like it is a hard meat to cook because I think I just overthink it. I always want to make sure it's done, and fish does not take long to cook. So I'm probably not the best teacher for showing you how to cook fish, but this is kind of how I do it. I just sear the side with the skin and then I flip it over, put the lid on, and then I temperature check my fish. So you can see in the background that I'm also cooking something else. So again, this is me utilizing my time in the kitchen. So I'm cooking some ground pork with a bunch of seasonings, trying to make it similar in taste to breakfast sausage because I'm also making an egg casserole for our breakfast in the upcoming days. Here are those gorgeous roasted veggies. I ended up adding some radishes, and then my garden had a few green beans, so I threw those on there as well. So here's the complete meal. So to finish seasoning the salmon, I added in what's called African smoke from Trader Joe's. It's just paprika, salt, pepper, and then parsley and butter and lemon juice. And it is ready to serve. So again, my oven was hot, so it was the perfect time to toss together a breakfast casserole for the upcoming days. On day 3, which was the day before Thanksgiving, I was doing a lot of Thanksgiving prep in the midst of cooking dinner, so I had to make a really simple dinner. I call this a sausage skillet. So I used whatever kind of vegetables I could find, and I used some potatoes and some sausage from the freezer. Sausage is always a really awesome, simple meat that's easy to cook and tastes great. So I'm gonna start by getting these potatoes ready. I decided to boil them because my oven was being used. I didn't have space for anything else, and boiling potatoes is usually the quickest option. So as for vegetables go, I used a purple onion, which I normally don't use in cooking, but again, we were getting down to the wire of food. I did not even have to go get food before my Thanksgiving dinner. I had everything in my home already, and I purchased it weeks ago. So I'll talk more about that in a minute, but I did onions, banana peppers from my neighbor. I gave all of these veggies a rough chop before adding them to a hot skillet with, of course, butter. So I got all of this nice and browned just to get those flavors going. I didn't really season it with much other than salt. After those were fragrant and cooked a little bit, I just kind of scavenged around the freezer and found some cauliflower from Trader Joe's, the colorful cauliflower, And then I was like, oh yeah, I have a garden. Let me go back there and see what I can also find. And I found some greens that I was able to toss in to add to the vegetable portion of the meal. So to finish off the skillet, I drained the potatoes that I boiled, and I'm going to add them into the cast iron skillet with the veggies just to get them browned and let them soak up some of that butter flavor. The sausages are fully cooked pork, cheddar, beef combination, so they just really needed to be heated well before serving. Here is the final meal all together. So we've got our veggies, potatoes, sausages, and we also served it with some of the Trader Joe's raw sauerkraut on the side. Day 4 was our Thanksgiving feast. For the meal, I made roasted turkey in the oven. I made a cranberry sauce on the side that I cooked with cranberries and pears. I used both frozen cranberries and frozen pears. Not kidding, the cranberries are from last year. I had bought 2 bags and never got around to doing something with the second bag, so I used it this year. I made the dressing out of dehydrated mushrooms, dehydrated celery, onions, almond flour, and eggs. For the twice baked sweet potatoes, I baked them and then cut them in half, scooped out the center, whipped the flesh, I guess you could say, with sour cream, butter, and rosemary, and then stuffed it back in. I made a green bean casserole with a combination of fresh and frozen green beans. I used a can of the portobello mushroom soup from Trader Joe's. I whipped in some mayonnaise, some sour cream, and then the topping was made with a combination of almond flour and just dehydrated onions and butter. Everything on the table had lots and lots of butter. We also had a pumpkin pie for dessert. I made the crust out of cassava and almond flour, and the filling was made with coconut milk, fresh cooked pumpkin, and spices and eggs. I also did whip up some fresh whipped cream, and we whipped in a little bit of Scottish whiskey for the adults, and that was a fun addition to our whipped cream this year. Okay, as you'll notice, I skipped day 5, and that is because we had leftovers of everything that was on the table. So, day number 6, I was like, okay, I'm gonna make something easy, but we're still gonna utilize a lot of the leftovers we have. So, it is actually early in the morning when I'm filming this, and I'm getting a pot of turkey bone broth going. Okay, so it is later in the day, the turkey bone broth is almost done, and I am going to start getting the soups going. So I'm just chopping up some shallots and some butternut squash. Again, I'm still working off whatever is in my pantry. I'm starting by just sauteing some shallots in butter, and then I'm adding in, so this is the juices that cooked off the turkey. You can see they were congealed, so really high in collagen, which is awesome. So I am going to use that actually because the broth was not quite ready. So I'm using those juices that cooked off the turkey as a broth base for this butternut squash soup. I'm just adding a little bit of water to those turkey juices because they were very strong and I just needed a little bit more liquid. Now I'm gonna get this to a boil and just allow it to simmer until those squash cubes are tender when poked with a fork. Next, I'm getting my turkey vegetable soup going. So I'm just chopping up some carrots and potatoes. I've already got an onion sauteing. I'm again working with what is still available in my inventory in my home. So I sauteed onions, I added in 1 can of petite diced tomatoes, and that's kind of what really gave it this red color. I didn't realize that the tomatoes were diced so fine. They weren't the chunky tomatoes like what I was expecting. So that's okay. I added in the potatoes and the carrots, and I just put in enough broth to kind of cover everything. I added in my turkey, and I'm just gonna let it simmer. The broth is really, really flavorful. I cooked the broth with herbs and other aromatics. So there's already a lot of flavor in this, but I will season it towards the end. I'm adding in some Swiss chard from my garden, as well as some parsley from my garden. I'm gonna add the lid and just let it simmer. If too much liquid cooks out, you can always add more towards the end. It's really, soup is what you make it. It's really one of the easiest things to cook. So don't overthink it. You can start with less liquid, add more, it will work out. So my butternut squash is now tender. I am just removing the bay leaf. I did add a bay leaf in, as well as some garlic. So I'm just using an immersion blender to give this a really good blend. I added in just a little bit of heavy cream just to give it a little bit of creaminess, and then sprinkled some smoked paprika on top. So the turkey drippings did give this a hint of turkey flavor, which is not surprising, because there was little bits of meat cooked off into that congealed broth. So just keep that in mind. If you ever use drippings, it's gonna give it a very unique flavor. We like it. My husband likes it more than I do. It's not my favorite, but I don't like to waste things, y'all. I really don't like to waste things, and I try to use every single thing that is provided to me. So day 7 for dinner, we decided to make a charcuterie board and just have leftovers. So you'll see some different hands in this clip. My husband helped me make the charcuterie board. Earlier that week, he had made one for a party at his work. So we had a bunch of leftovers, and we were like, why not just make one, and then we'll just have some soup with it if we're still hungry. So this was really fun to do. Our toddler loved all of the charcuterie board food, of course. So this was fun. You can see we're kind of snacking as we make it, but that's just reality. So we did some dried sausage. This is the kind that you can get at Trader Joe's, and it's shelf stable. And then cheeses, sun-dried tomatoes. It's an eggplant spread in the background you can see in the jar. Some marinated artichoke hearts, some candied walnuts, and some crackers. So again, these were leftover items from the board that he made for work. So a lot of these things are not usual things we have in our pantry, like the eggplant garlic spread does have some seed oils in it, which is something that we avoid in our diet on a regular basis. So occasionally, it's okay, but we really try to keep the seed oils to a minimum. And there were also a lot of seed oils on the roasted nuts. So again, just something that we keep to a minimum, but fun to enjoy on occasion. And here is the final board, or I should say plate. It turned out so fun, so delicious, and we were able to just kind of sit down and enjoy it as a family. We did follow this up with some of the soups that I made the day before. You learn something and walk away feeling inspired. No. Okay. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you walk away feeling inspired and that you learned something today. If you enjoyed the video, please like it, consider sharing with your friends, and subscribe so you don't miss my next video. Thanks again.